Hello Nigel, this is just to confirm that the clock that you're actually going to be getting is in a good working state beforehand. So just in case any issues with regards to postage or damage to the item, I just need to sort of prove to you that everything is actually in place and working and complete. So as we can see here with regards to the clock, it will chime every quarter. So let's go to that position. Let's take it to 1/2 past. And then let's take it to 1/4 to. Okay, and then at 3 o'clock. So that's 3 on the dot, working perfectly fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure it's wound just a little bit. This one's tight. This one just needs a little bit more winding. As you can see that the drums or the barrels are perfectly in good working order, so nothing's happened there. And then, yeah, that's particularly tight. Let's just make sure. Perfect. Now what I'll do is show you the back of the clock just to make sure that the mechanism is ticking away nicely. So what we've got at the back of the clock is the pendulum is swinging. Now the reason why you need to see this is some people assume that the clock is not working. So what happens is that with regards to the balance of this clock, that when they receive it, the surface that's on here is going to be different or uneven to the surface. So how do you compensate for that? So if I was to let the clock tick, what would happen is that it would tick perfectly fine. So it has a perfect tick tock. So let me bring it closer and I'll explain what I mean by this. And the reason why I'm explaining this to you is because just in case you're unfamiliar with how to calibrate the clock depending on the surface that it's on, as you can hear, yeah, the clock is ticking away quite nicely. Okay, so that means that the surface, this current surface, is calibrated for the actual surface of the clock here. So what happens is that let's just assume that this clock is going to be on a surface that is uneven, or a surface that you have said, okay, let's say it's a mantelpiece, that's a completely different level to this. So I'm just going to bring it out of level, so I'll just bring it here, so you can see that I've put a key there to make it uneven. So let me show you what I mean by that. So you can hear that the clock has come to a stop. So let me do that again. So I'm literally going to wait for it to actually come to a full halt on its own.
That was very good. Right.
And as you can hear, the clock is not going tick-tock, it's going more tick than tock. So you can hear it, tick-tock, tick-tock, so it's off balance, and it will come to a stop because of that. It's the sound that's important. So how do you then compensate? And I'll just wait for the clock to stop first of all.
There were the things on halfway upstairs.
And because it's uneven now, I can hear that the clock is actually struggling. So I'll show you that the fact that the key is still there. And I'll let you listen to it for a second. This is a really well made clock, so it seems to be sort of compensating for this, but let's just make sure that it does come to a halt, just in case when it arrives to you that it actually comes, you are able to actually calibrate it, and I will show you in the next stage how to calibrate it.
Yeah, I can't do that now.
So what you've got here is it's ticking away still, even though it's supposed to be on an uneven surface, that it's able to actually calibrate for the actual surface itself.
Sure, you don't. You're not old enough to have a wrist back, so, you know, if you know what you're doing. It's just they were trying to chop some glass in the coal shed. Get broken glass and chop on it. Put it out and have something done to it, but I can't remember, I'm not very old. No, it hurt.
You can remember that.
Oh yeah, I've got to remember.
Seems to be ticking away regardless of the actual surface. So what I'll do is I will lift it just a little bit more, so give me a second while I quickly find something else to sort of wedge it. So let me just make sure that it goes uneven like that. So that's a bit big of a jiggle, so I'll put this case here. So it's come to a halt. And I'm going to let it swing for a second just so that you can see. So once it's on an uneven surface and you swing the pendulum to start the clock ticking, you notice that it's completely stopped moving. There's no ticking sound, so let me hear it. You can listen to it. No ticking sound whatsoever. So it's struggling to find a bite so you can actually click. So how do we calibrate for this surface here? Okay, so what happens is you've got a section here, and this is how most clocks are actually calibrated. So in this section here, there's a little tiny L shape here, and I'll zoom into it just to make sure you can see it. So that particular L shape there is associated to the actual mechanism at the back there. So you can see the L shape comes down into that section there. Why is that important? Because that helps you calibrate for whatever surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it to compensate. So there's an adjustment that you need to make, and I'll just push it to the right hand side.
They weren't in there, I said I wouldn't fix that. Nurse just put a needle through it. As soon as it was starting, it was done with leptin, yeah.
So what I was just doing there was just tweaking it just a little bit. Now you can hear that even on an uneven surface like this, it's ticking away quite nicely, because now, because of this L shape here, you shunt it to the left or right ever so slightly to compensate for the centre of gravity that the clock is on. So it's just a matter of actually calibrating it for the uneven surface. Immediately you'll be able to see that it's actually ticking away. Now let's say that we put it back on a level surface and you need to calibrate it back. And what happens is that you're able to actually see that it will come to immediate stop. You can see it's struggling there. Completely struggling. And the reason why I'm showing you this is so that you're able to actually calibrate yourself with this L shape here. So because now it's back on its original surface, it's uneven. So what the idea behind it is to actually put it back. So I'm going to use this L shape, push it just a little bit to the left. Now that's all I did, and you'll be able to hear that it's shunted back and calibrated to the surface that it's currently on. And if it does stop, all it is just a matter of actually making sure that this is calibrated ever so slightly. So I can hear that there's more tick to the top, so I'm just going to push it back just to right, just ever so slightly. And this is how all the clocks were actually calibrated in the past, is they were able to actually see. You can see, yep, that is totally calibrated now, so you can see that it's actually in position. So I'm going to leave it ticking just for a little while so you've got proof that this is actually working. Okay. So, and also one other thing that you should know as part of this is, for transportation reasons, there's a actual lever here that you need to be made aware of. So you need to look at this, that this basically comes down and stops the bars from moving when they've been transported. So you'll be able to see there that it stops the actual hammers hitting, and this is for transportation purposes. The pendulum will be removed when we go to the for transportation. So I'll wrap this up and place it in position, and then you'll be able to see that I'm just going to pad this out. I'm going to actually put this in a separate case and shove it inside the back here with the key. So you can see then when you actually come to working it out, all you have to do is just lift this back up, and then the hammers will strike. So I'll put it back in position. I'll let the clock tick. So I'll just put the pendulum back on. Let it tick for a little while longer. In the meantime, you'll be able to hear the strike. So and that's on a 30-minute marker, so that works perfectly fine. So when it arrives to you, just make sure you put the actual hammer holders in position, put the pendulum back onto it, calibrate it in the right section, and that's literally all you need to do. Right, that's basically the clock there. This will be transported to you. So now you know how to calibrate the clock. You obviously know how to wind the clocks just to make sure that every single part of it is sorted out, and then excellent. And of course what you've also got is a section here that allows you to make it silent, so that it doesn't actually strike on the silence. But again, it's a matter of actually knowing whether you want it to chime or not. If you don't want it to chime, obviously you just push it down, and if you want it to chime, push it up. And if it's mismatching with the actual quarterly hour, all you have to do is push it up and then push it down and push it up again, and it will go to the next phase, which means, let's just assume that this is out of sync. So if I was to put it into this, so it thinks it's 4 o'clock even though it's 1:45. Okay, so it thinks it should be 1:15, okay? But what you do is in this section here, what you do, let me just quickly zoom into that. Yeah, so what you do is you push it down, and then you push it back up again, and it will take it to the next phase. And that's how you calibrate for the mismatching of the phases, pushing this up and down, and that will allow you to do that. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all you need to know. Thanks, Nigel.